The court has granted a 60-day pause in the SEC Ripple appeals case following a joint request from both parties' ongoing settlement negotiation. The SEC is expected to file a status report by June 15th. Pretty much, what's left is, for the judge to sign off on the settlement. We know it has been publicly announced that, this lawsuit is over, but the judge does have to sign off on the settlement before it's like, officially over in terms of, from the court, standpoint. But good stuff, of course. I know a lot of people just want this to, kind of go away, but there are obviously processes in place for a reason, and that's just something that, we need to be patient about. But welcome back to the Crypto ZX channel, to the XRP holders. Appreciate each and every one of you guys, of course. Let's take a closer look and understand, what's happening with the price of XRP right now, and of course, what we could be expecting going into Thursday morning. Looking across the market, you did see a market bouncing over the last, few hours since we last spoke. We did see the dominance pulling down a little bit, which of course has, caused the altcoin market to react in a positive way. And also, Bitcoin did see a little bit of an uptick. But as far as XRP's price is concerned right now, it's currently sitting at $2.10, up 0.4% in BTC comparative side of things. Market cap 122.7 billion. So if you want to put this into perspective, about $1 billion has been added to the valuation over the last few hours towards XRP, and the 24-hour trading volume is at about 2.8 billion. But before we get into any further, as always, just a quick disclaimer: anything on this channel is not financial advice. Always do your own due diligence and research when you are investing in crypto. So let's start off with this. $1.5 trillion gone. The stock market just had a meltdown. If your portfolio suddenly felt lighter, it's because Wall Street just bled out over $1.5 trillion in a single day. Big names all red. So, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Nvidia, Meta, everyone's losing like it's a group project that got a zero. So, of course, what's really causing this? In terms of uncertainty, still quite high. A lot of people still not sure whether or not Jerome Powell is going to come out and do a rate cut. Speaking about Jerome Powell, he had an interview yesterday. Of course, it's past midnight now here in North America, depending where you are. So yesterday, he did speak on this matter, and he thinks tariffs could cause inflation to go higher, which of course is not what people want to hear. And remember, that does have a negative impact on the equity markets, and we're seeing that happening. And it actually had a negative impact on BTC as well. But since then, Bitcoin did see a little bit of a jump because crypto markets never are closed, so market moves freely, and that is something maybe that reaction is kind of over with, and you are seeing BTC kind of stabilizing itself. So is the stock market going to open up on a positive note? I wouldn't be surprised, but again, we'll see what happens in terms of a resolution standpoint. We still obviously need to hear that, but of course, I personally think that is the reason why you did see the equity market see a little bit of a retracement. Moving forward, BlackRock spot Bitcoin ETF bought 365 Bitcoin worth $30.6 million. You guys can see this for yourself. They are buying BTC, but look at this. Someone bought almost, if you were to round it up, guys, like 7 million XRP from Coinbase and transferred it to an unknown wallet. And I know a lot of people are going to be wondering, what's this? Why are they doing this? Again, accumulation. Maybe it's a bunch of whales, or maybe it's an insider that knows something. Or maybe people just want to buy for the long haul, but accumulation is happening. We're not talking about small money, we're talking about large money, and this does not count OTC. OTC is something that not a lot of people focus on. I talk about OTC so much because every single time people tend to ask, the price of XRP is not exploding. No, first and foremost, you need to understand that the entire market has been pretty much on the shaky end. Obviously due to some external factors that have impact, and again, in terms of a retail standpoint and the demand factor, it's not there as to where it was just a few months back. Like I said, obviously it's due to some external factors, uncertainty there, people just not sure whether or not it's a good time to be investing. But long-term accumulation, and that has not stopped. If you look at Bitcoin on-chain metrics, if you look at even XRP on-chain metrics, it speaks a lot, for itself. But OTC is something I want you guys to always consider because these big entities, if they want exposure to XRP or other digital assets, they're not just going to go on market and purchase it, because of course if you're talking about millions or potentially even billions of dollars, that's going to have a really positive impact on the market itself. So OTC is how majority of these big entities move, and get exposure to digital assets or even like stocks in that case. And I do believe that is happening behind the scenes, considering think about it, all these ETF filings that we're seeing, and of course, the question that always comes is the price of XRP being kept down at these levels on purpose? I don't think so. Reason why I don't think so is because we are seeing BTC also seeing obviously a retracement. So I think it's pretty much at its fair value in this state of the market, but it has held its ground really nicely, which a lot of people overlook. But I don't want you guys to be overlooking that on the Crypto ZX channel. So very interesting thing. Let me know your personal thoughts down below in regards to that. Moving forward, VanEck plans to launch a new crypto-related ETF node on May 14th, so next month. The ETF will invest into 30 to 60 stocks tied to digital assets economy, including crypto exchanges, Bitcoin miners, and data centers. So again, I'm sure a lot of people are excited about this. And speaking of this, are we going to see a lot of these big projects launch their own IPOs this year? Again, we've been talking about IPOs for the longest time. I think Ripple IPO does make sense, and maybe other ones as well. And of course, VanEck and the likes of these other entities might look into those IPOs as well. But I think this IPO craze is something not a lot of people are considering, because think about it from this perspective. I think I forgot exactly which company is purchasing Solana and adding it to their strategic reserve. Reason why I bring this up is because as soon as they came and announced that they are going to be adding Solana into their strategic reserve, you saw the price of their stocks skyrocket. And I'm just forgetting the company's name, but I've spoken about it on my Solana updates if you do watch that. So my whole point here is look at the track record. We saw a GameStop, we saw a bunch of these other entities. Whenever crypto or digital assets are involved, when they talk about that or they're purchasing it, you do tend to see the stock go up. So imagine Ripple having their own IPO. I think this IPO craze could get crazy, and I think we are going to see a lot of different IPOs for multiple different crypto projects, which is going to be very exciting. And me as someone that loves crypto, I am kind of obviously keeping track of the equity markets because that's something that I have interest in. But in terms of an investment, I don't usually focus too much on the equity market that much. But I'm completely shifting my strategy now because I'm getting to a personal space where I personal level, I would say, where I would be wanting to look into the equity markets as well. And now of course as you are going to see a lot of these ETFs launching for crypto, and on top of that you're going to see potential IPOs, that is where my interest is as well, and I will be eyeing that side of the market as well. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys are on the same table, or are you guys just completely 100% crypto. Let me know your personal thoughts. Even if you are 100% crypto, there's nothing wrong with that, but make sure you diversify your portfolio. You don't want to be just going in single one coin. Look at what happened with Mantra, and look at what happened with Luna in the past. The risk you take with just going in a one project is just too high. So one thing I can give you, a big tip that I can give you, is make sure if you want exposure into the crypto space, always do your due diligence and research, number one. Number two, always invest what you can afford to lose and diversify your portfolio. That is something that I cannot stress enough. But enough with the rant. Let's kind of continue to take a look at what's really happening. So stable coins. Stable coins are a hot topic. We know about that. And because, for the first time in the crypto market, stable coins and transactions have surpassed Visa. Again, speaks for itself. And speaking about stable coins, look what Ripple says. Global businesses need fast, low-cost ways to move money. RLUSD is now integrated into the Ripple payments, enabling real-time cross-border payments backed by institutional-grade compliance, transparency, and trust. There we have it. Now, let's take a look at what's happening with the price. So 63.85. Can you believe 83? Wow, that would be scary. 83% dominance would be very scary, but what I meant was 63.85%. So, we did see the dominance going up to 64.23%. Obviously, since then it has pulled down, while Bitcoin did see this little bit of an uptick that I've mentioned earlier. And again, kind of explains why we are seeing a lot of green across the board. As far as XRP is concerned, obviously still ranging in the 38.2, which of course is nice to see. I know people want to see the 23.6 retest, which we were literally, above a month back. I do believe, we will get back there, quite fast. Obviously, right now, dominance is something we need to consider. But, the fact that, we are being supported by this range, the price of XRP holding really strongly above that, speaks a lot. And I'm not surprised because, of course, this is a major level of support. But one step at a time, of course. Let me know down below what you guys think about all of the things that we've discussed. And if you have not subscribed or you're waiting for, hit that red subscribe button and come join the Crypto ZX army. But with that said, I'll close out the video here. We'll see you later in Crypto ZX and peace out.